what is Synergy Enterprise? And this is mostly for the folks, obviously, that aren't using it, but just to talk through that a little bit. Here in the center of this diagram, we have Macola, because for a lot of folks, Macola represents a core business application for you. If you look around the diagram there, you can see obviously your employees are working inside Macola. Your customers and vendors and possibly sales prospects are also tracked inside Macola to some point. Financial information obviously is also inside Macola. So what can we do to take that data from Macola and leverage it in new ways in the organization, both by perhaps exposing it to people in a way that they wouldn't necessarily use it in Macola, or to folks that don't necessarily use Macola or belong in Macola, and let them do some more things around that will provide value to them and to the organization. So that's kind of a real high-level statement, but we'll dig into what that means in a second. Some of the ways that Synergy allows you to do that are through the use of projects. We won't get into a lot on projects today. You see down there at the bottom. We will talk more about workflow and document management and how Synergy can help with those. And then right before the session, I thought of a few other things that I didn't get added to the main diagram, but one thing that was missing that comes out of Macola is information about your items, parts, finished goods, what have you. You can also leverage that information inside Synergy. And then some data that you can actually look up live into Macola from the Synergy side. And this gets to my statement about allowing people that wouldn't necessarily use Macola or be a good fit to use Macola, but still need some of the information out of there, to be able to look up things like inventory levels. How many of these parts do we have in stock? What's the status of this sales order? Maybe look up some information on POs and other Macola-related data from outside of the Macola system. So, some of you may be sitting there thinking, well, that's a nice conceptual diagram, Andy, but what is this thing actually going to look like for my people once they start using it? So let's get into that next. We're going to first take it from a standpoint of a sales manager, but this could apply to any employee internally. Quick mention for those of you using the Synergy Classic, or sometimes I call it Synergy ASP version, where we've talked with you and with a lot of you set up actually some what we call custom home pages to allow your users to log in and quickly see some information that applies to whatever it is that they're doing, and allow them to easily navigate down into the depths of Synergy to get to the items that they need to take action on or find out more information about. With Synergy Enterprise, this takes a big step forward. This is one representation of what that might look like here. In this case, Katie is a sales manager, and when she logs in, she sees a screen something like this, where, as you can see, she cares about what's going on over here with their funnel diagram on the right. She cares about what's going on with her leads and opportunities. Down below on the left, so you can see part of a pie chart looking at maybe some sales performance data. And then this monitor section allows her to easily drill into some of her data that she's stored inside Synergy Enterprise. So again, taking some of that data from Macola, maybe that's here in her monitor section here, you can see the account link. Maybe it's customers that are assigned to her. Maybe it's, in this case, you can see here the link to her two subordinates or her manager, so it's other employees that are in the system that relate somehow to her, and she needs to get information about them. Or those, in this case, these opportunities. Now, maybe that doesn't relate directly to some Macola data, but perhaps that once we close a sale with a new customer, that would feed back into Macola, so there's still a connection there. So, along the lines of taking that Macola data, exposing it to Katie in ways that allow her to perform her function as a sales manager and provide value back to the organization. And just in a way, again, going back to the comparison to Synergy Classic, in a way that's both easier to set up for the system administrator, whether that's somebody inside your organization, or if you look to algorithm for that assistance, more tools to do that without having to get into like HTML programming, as well as just more options to provide pleasing visuals to the user. And we'll see another example of that right here, where this is Russ's homepage. He's a salesperson. Maybe he works for Katie. But in this case, I want to point out a couple of things. One is you can obviously see the things that jump right out at you are these gauges on the upper right, where he can look at some data about his sales appointments that he's either scheduled or canceled. So maybe those are some key performance indicators for him. Now, you're saying, Andy, you're talking about sales managers and salespeople. What about, our organization doesn't really have that model or what have you. Well, this could apply to any person in the organization, whether that's, quality assurance or receiving, or anything like that, where there's some sort of KPIs that relate to their job. We can pretty easily set up these dashboard widgets to represent some sort of measurement of data that pertains to them. So that's what Russ sees on the upper right. Over here, you can see some overdue opportunities, so it's kind of an alert to things that are past due. Here you can see his workflow in the middle, which I'll get back to that in a little bit. But the larger point here is that if you look on the left on the top, he's not in the Synergy application inside of a browser, as we'll look at in a minute. He is actually inside of his Microsoft Outlook. And with the tighter integration that Synergy Enterprise has with Outlook and the other Office products, it makes it somewhat seamless for Russ and others who are comfortable in Outlook to be able to go there and still access the data that we're leveraging over on the Synergy side, just through an interface that they're already familiar with. Okay. The next piece I want to show you is, let's say Russ worked in quality assurance, and he had clicked on one of those links inside of his workflow. I want to introduce the concept of workflow and mention a few of the improvements inside Synergy Enterprise compared to some of the older versions. First, to talk about what workflow means inside Synergy and how that can help an organization. This particular workflow is not sales related. It's more along the quality side, where it's a non-conformance type of task. There's a lot going on here, so give me a second to walk you through that. First thing we see are the 4 boxes across the top here, and you can see that there's a flow using these arrows, and it's going to go from one person in the organization or one role inside the organization to another. For those of you using Synergy Classic, you'll notice you can now label these steps according to what they actually do instead of the standardized ones that were in the older version. But regardless, it gives us the ability to take a business process and model it and control the flow as an organization to make sure different things get done the way that they're supposed to get done, and that the information gets captured the way that it's supposed to get captured. So in this example, Joseph on March 30th created this non-conformance task. It then went back to him, and that can happen in an organization if that's the way you need it to. Typically, it would go to someone else. And this green box here indicates that Joseph needs to take some action on this. So, whether you're used to using Outlook tasks or calendar reminders or sticky notes, whatever it is, or paper forms being passed through the organization to remind you to do things, that's kind of what this represents, something related to this. And if he clicks on it, he'll see this screen. And then when he's done with it, he can click on this blue bar here or click this button, and it'll go on to the next person, and then on to the next person after that. But meanwhile, while it's sitting here in Joseph's task list, there's some information that he needs to both review and then add to. So you can see in this case, when he initially filled this thing out, or someone else had, you can see there was a shipment that was damaged for a customer, and you can see that we're linking it to the customer that perhaps filed the complaint or let us know that there was a problem, and who the contact person is there. So again, we're taking this customer who's probably based out of Macola and doing something that Macola doesn't allow us to do, which is to track a non-conformance type of issue here in QA. Over here, we've got the link to the particular part number in question, and again, that's probably Macola data coming over from Macola to the Synergy side. We put in some other information about how many and order numbers. There's all kinds of fields that we can capture on this screen. And again, this is a sample of how this works in a demo company. This doesn't necessarily have to represent how it works in your company. A number of samples come out of the box, I like to say, when we install Synergy that allow you to figure out what the possibilities are, and then take those and tweak them or create your own according to your needs. So here we've got some fill-in-the-blank type fields, as well as a drop-down box that we've added to the screen. But down here, once we get to this section where it gives us instructions saying enter a detailed description of the nonconformance, and that's what the person has done here when they filled this thing out and then time-stamped it. And then here, we're going to enter a detailed description of the corrective action and what should happen next. And if we look down here in the disposition section, we can see it was a packaging issue, it was under warranty, we're going to send them a replacement, and then who's going to be responsible for that. So we've identified Robert in this field so that when Joseph closes this thing out of his workflow, it's going to flow to Robert next so that he knows that he needs to take whatever action he's supposed to. So, in this scenario, the common question I get is, well, is this going to take care of my, is this going to do my job for me, kind of thing? And no, it's not. All it's doing is tracking for Joseph and for Robert, but first of all, alerting them that there's something that needs to be taken care of, but then also tracking who did what and when, so that we can come back later and do some analysis along those lines if we need to. Just a couple other notes on this screen, rather. We've got some cost data that we're capturing over here, so we can do analysis on that. And then down here, we can attach supporting documentation, so we can browse out to our share drive or our operating system, or if we're storing documents inside Synergy, to attach perhaps an email from the customer or a Word document or whatever. And I'll get more into some of those possibilities a little bit later. But again, we started out looking at some home pages related to the sales process, but those could have just as easily been related to an internal process, and I wanted to walk you through the concept of workflow in an internal type process. So don't let the examples here limit your thinking as far as what this could do within your organization. So anything that's handled currently by email or a paper form, or a lot of folks, actually some of the folks on the line here have custom developed applications to help them with these kinds of process flows. We can help you model that inside Synergy here, and without custom programming, for the most part, we can probably take care of it this way.
Andy, can I interrupt with a question?
I would love you to do that.
Okay, so I don't want to make this too particular to our environment, but what is the trigger that starts this workflow? Does it have to be just a manual event, or can there be some entry of data in some database that triggers something that pops the workflow up?
That's a great question. It could be either. Sometimes it's, a customer called, and so that's going to be a manual thing. Sometimes it's a customer emailed, and I'll call that semi-automated, where somebody gets that in their email and reviews it and then uploads it to the system and can trigger this workflow that way. Or, and I think this is where you were headed, Herschel, it could be fully automated to the extent that something happened in another system. So we recorded it somewhere, or who knows what it was, something in Macola, something in an Access database, whatever. And through use of an add-on application that also from Exact called Event Manager, we can trigger these workflows. In fact, just this morning, I was working with one of our customers in Michigan, where they have an AP invoice approval process. So a vendor sends an invoice, comes in, it actually automatically uploads into Synergy as a document, and then we automatically spawn some workflow from that for a certain manager to go approve that. So the answer is yes, it can be automated.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Other questions right now? Okay. Hearing none. Again, I could go into a lot more. I want to go into more detail once we get into the software itself, and I'll do that right after this slide. But I just wanted to show you one more thing, because I invariably get questions about what are the mobile opportunities. My salespeople are on the road; they don't want to carry a laptop. They're tied to their iPhone or their iPad or what have you, and there are options for that. We have some options that will actually help you do this with the Synergy Classic for those of you running that, but the options get better with Synergy Enterprise, where there are some native apps that you can use both in the Android and Apple environments to do that. You can see we've got a somewhat old screenshots, actually, now that I'm looking at them, of an iPhone and an iPad. There's also some hosting capabilities or mobile publishing capabilities that Algorithm does outside of what Exact is developing for native apps to allow you to do those things as well. So just depending on what it is you need to do, there are options for that, and be happy to get into more detail on that if you're interested at some point. Okay, that's enough PowerPoint. So let me hop over here. I'm going to have to log back in, so bear with me a second. To my Synergy demo environment. Can somebody let me know that they can see that Synergy screen?
Yep, I see it.
Thank you. I was worried for a second.
I see
Good.
it.
So this is Synergy Enterprise. I'll give you a quick tour, just again for those of you not real familiar with the concept of Synergy, as well as for those that are not used to this look and feel. I'm using Microsoft Internet Explorer. For those of you that use Synergy Classic, you're limited to Internet Explorer. Synergy Enterprise does a better job of supporting other browser environments, Firefox, Chrome. I'm not sure about Safari, but I think so. I don't want to say those are fully supported at this point, but I know that's a direction that Exact is taking the Synergy Enterprise environment. But again, I'm in Internet Explorer here, so again, I'm accessing our demo server via remote desktop connection. But depending on where you are and how you set up your firewall and your network, we have a lot of customers, and actually here at Algorithm, we use Synergy. We access the Synergy environment from basically anywhere. We just type in a URL. In our case, it's esynergy.algorithminc.com, and we log in, and we can see our Synergy no matter where we are, whether I'm at one of my customers on their workstation or from my home computer or what have you. So there's all kinds of discussions to be had there about different security models, things like that. We'll be happy to guide you through those if that's important to you. But just be aware that it's basically a browser-based application. It doesn't require a local install other than some of the Microsoft Office applications add-ins that I'll show you in a little bit. So you're not as tied to your desktop environment as you necessarily would be in a Macola type of application. Talking a little bit more about the interface. Here I've got a top menu, and all of this is configurable. This is just the way I happen to like mine. And I'm using what's called the textual interface, where it's all words. There is an icon-based interface as well. For those of you that like pictures better than words, that's fine. Over here on the left, I have my information. Now, I happen to be logged in as Jonathan Nelson because he set up this environment, but it's me for today, where I can expand out and look at some things like my workflow. Remember when I was talking about that workflow task going along? I can click here and see anything that I'm currently supposed to take care of. I can look at my calendar. I can look at my people. Here's all the employees in my organization, and again, these can be Macola users as well as people that are not in Macola. I can track information about them. I can look at my documents, my sales opportunities. I can create things, so if I need to create a new lead in the system or create a new document, and then I can search for things. If I need to search for people or accounts or whatever, I can just start typing here, and notice it will give me suggestions about possible fits for whatever it is that I've typed there. I can just pick one of those and go directly to that record. If I want to, I can get rid of that left menu, and I'll just click up here on homepage and go back here. And I want to spend a few minutes on this dashboard. I showed you a couple of screenshots in the PowerPoint of different dashboards. This is one that Exact provides, as I said before, out of the box. There are a number of these. This one they happen to call the CEO dashboard. And it's meant just as a template, basically, as a starting point for things that certain roles inside of your organization might want to leverage, trying to provide more value from Synergy, making it more of a product than just a tool set. So this is the CEO dashboard. They also provide purchasing dashboards and manufacturing type dashboards and sales management type dashboards. They all sort of look and feel the same as this, but have different information. Where here is the CEO, I've got my cash flow projection, which you can see is a little weak here in my demo company. I've got my control account snapshot, it's called, over here on the right, where I can see, what do we have for cash, what do we have in inventory, payables, and receivables. I can scroll down here, and I've got my executive scoreboard, where I can see more information along those lines, along with some stoplight type information, and I can mouse over those. Here's my sales management dashboard, and some other graphs that Exact has built for us. The other thing I can do, and this is important because there's a lot of products you can do this with. These dashboards are built using Microsoft SQL Server reporting services. For those of you familiar with Crystal, it's kind of along the same lines as those. But Synergy Enterprise has some important integration capabilities with these, I'm going to call them SSRS, SQL Server Reporting Services reports that go beyond what you normally see in integrating those into a product. And what do I mean by that? Well, for one thing, there are contextual menus that you can put in here. For example, I'll show you a real simple one right here, where right here is my report, and I see this bank account, and I want to drill in and get more information about that. I can click here, and I can, based on the system knew that I clicked on a bank account there, I can click that, and it actually pops up a Macola ES screen that I can go in here. And here I am inside of a Macola ES screen looking at a GL card for that particular account, and I can do whatever it is I would need to do in there. Obviously, I need to have rights in order to do that, but the possibility exists. So that one happened to be a GL account, but if I clicked on an inventory item, I could drill into Macola inventory screen if I wanted to. So going beyond just being able to bring some data from the Macola system over here into Synergy, we can now, according to the specific needs of this user in your organization, provide them with links, not only provide them with a dashboard that gives them exactly what they need to see, whether that's KPIs or whatever, but then give them links directly back into whatever Macola screens they might want to use to look up or perform additional actions inside Macola. Just more examples along those lines. Up here I've got a menu bar, and again, these are contextual menus, and we can build these. They come with some out of the box, but we can build them to be whatever you want. I click on reports, and here I've got a sales history report. I click there. I want to see it by invoice date by customer, and it launches the Macola ES sales history by invoice date by customer report, and I can do whatever I want with that. So again, there's a lot of value inside the Macola application, but a lot of times certain users in the organization, like classically the CEO, a lot of the folks probably on the phone today cringe whenever the owner of the company wants to go into Macola. Here's a way that you maybe can get them into a limited set of that data, either by bringing it here into the dashboard or by allowing them to drill into selected Macola screens directly from here. One other example of that, if I go to entries, I can go in here and not just access Macola screens, but I can access Synergy screens from here. So for example, I can enter a help desk request from here. So I'm on my dashboard, I'm the CEO, and I realize that there's something going on either on this dashboard or maybe with something else I'm using in my office. And notice this screen looks a lot like that quality assurance type screen that we were looking at before, but it's a lot simpler. This is just a two-step help desk request that we've defined in our Synergy workflow system, where in this case, me as the user, I'm going to fill this thing out. I can send it to a particular individual, or we could have this set to go to a group of people in our IT team, however we want to do that. Actually, I'll just send this to myself. I'll say it's a printer issue. What kind of issue is it? I don't know. I'll say it's a computer issue. I'll say it's high priority because I'm the boss. I could attach maybe a screenshot or other information there, and I'll just say help and timestamp it, and then I submit that. And I'm back here on my dashboard. So again, just at a real high levels, we can easily develop these home pages, these dashboards for folks. I mean, you don't just snap your fingers and it's exactly what you need, but there are templates to start with, and then we work with you to identify what the different needs are of your executives and whoever else you want to roll this out to in the organization. And then we can build those out and deploy them. So it's not just a bunch of meaningless links greeting them when they log into Synergy. It's data that they need and can use every day. Okay, so that's a quick overview of some of the dashboard capabilities with the SSRS reports. Let's look at a different home page that I have set up. In this case, it's my opportunity funnel. So I can have multiple home pages. Let's say I have multiple roles in the organization or just different things that I do during the day. In this case, I have my opportunity funnel homepage. And here you can see a lot like in this Katie's screenshot back in the PowerPoint. We have this funnel diagram that shows us where we stand on our sales opportunities. Also, I have an alert on any ones that we've lost recently, as well as a grid here showing us some of the dollar values associated with some of these things. But I'm going to come over here to my opportunity funnel. I'll click on that orange for that certain status, which is quoted opportunities. It lists the two that made up that part of the funnel. I can drill in further and look at the opportunity that's underlying this. And I understand that not everybody on the line here, that your sales model or your requirements for synergy match this, but just to give you a quick tour of what you can do if this does match your sales model. This opportunity represents something that we're going to try to sell to this online bike store. In this case, it's some kids' bikes, and we're tracking the relative dollar values of this opportunity as it goes through its life cycle. And if I want to see its life cycle, I can click on this View Flow button. And I can see that we've defined our sales process. This is not exact defining your sales process. This is you saying this is how our sales process works: initial contact, quotation, follow-up, and then contract. You can see we're in step 2 of that. So as we continue to move forward, we would see additional bars in this chart as we move through the process. We can also look at other information about this opportunity. I can add competitors if we want to track who the competition is here and what their strengths and weaknesses are. If we're working with partners, so whether that's a technology partner or an architect or whoever that would be that's working with us, we can have that listed here. And we can also add information about the specific items that we're quoting to them, as well as contact people inside their organization that are related to this specific opportunity. So very easy to come here and drill down from the high-level opportunity funnel and drill down here to the detailed information. One more thing I want to show you from this screen is, well, I could click Lost if we lost the opportunity. I could click New Document. But let's say I'm working this opportunity and I need to set up a meeting with somebody or I have an appointment. How would I do that? I would click on this New Request button. And I would say I'm going to make an appointment. Click right there. Now this is, I did that so I could drill you down into yet another example of how we use workflow inside Synergy for different types of processes. This is a one-step workflow process that represents an appointment. So I'm going to say this is a meeting, and meeting with the folks from that online bike store. I'm going to meet with Jim, and I'm going to meet, let's say, tomorrow. And here, notice I can type in AM, PM, whatever it is I need to do, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. and submit that. And you say, great, well, where did that go? Well, I could drill back into my homepage and go look at the opportunity, and it's there. But what if I want to go look at my calendar? And you can see here, it's now showing up on my calendar. This calendar is inside Synergy, but it can also synchronize with your Outlook calendar if you want it to. You can have Outlook appointments come over to the Synergy side. You can also have Synergy appointments go over to the Outlook side. So I can drill into that. And then from here, notice I'm linked to the customer. I'm linked to the contact. I can click here and drill back, and I'm right back on the opportunity. So it's fairly easy, again, once you're shown how to do it in training, to be able to navigate all these things to get where you need to go pretty quickly. Okay. Any questions at this point on either the workflow or the opportunities or the home pages, things I've shown so far? I'm going to pick on Chris. Chris, are you still there?
How did I know that was who you're going to pick on?
I'm sorry. That's what you get for speaking up early. I remembered your name. All right. Now, I know you guys have Synergy. I was working with Ashley a couple of weeks ago, and I saw you have Synergy Enterprise installed. Are you using it for workflow or anything else like that you're aware of?
I'm not directly involved with it, but I know that we use it mainly in our sales group.
Okay.
Basically our CRM.
Okay, so that's kind of along the lines of what we're talking about here. Not everybody does opportunity tracking as part of CRM, but as far as just contact management sales notes, things like that. You can do that as well. Good.
Yeah, and we are using it as our pipeline tool and kind of taking it down the opportunity tracking.
Okay. I won't pick on anybody else by name, but anybody else want to chime in there? Anybody using it along those lines or wanting to? Christy?
Yes.
Are your guys using this?
Well, yes, they are. They're supposed to be. We're still helping them.
I'm picking on Christy. Well, I promised I wouldn't say anybody by name, but then something popped into my head. I was on a WebEx with one of her salespeople. I think it was yesterday, and on his desktop was a spreadsheet where he was tracking all of his opportunities. And I saw that, I kind of chuckled. So, Christy and I worked together a couple of years ago to build kind of an opportunity tracking system in the Synergy Classic side, and we've been continuing to endeavor to get the adoption by the sales force ever since then. So not everything is easy when you try to get people to switch from something that's easy and familiar to them to something new. That's kind of my point in picking on you there.
Would that be the guy in New York?
that would be our friend in New York, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Not to throw him under the bus, but
okay.
I guess my point is that both that rolling this out, or rolling anything out that's new and different, especially to remote users, especially to salespeople, can be challenging, and each organization has their own examples of those challenges. But so it takes some psychology and it takes some strategy. But Algorithm feels like we have some experience based on working with folks like Christy, as well as Synergy Enterprise now provides us with some new tools to perhaps ease the experience for those users. So, all right. Next, I'm going to drill into the Outlook interface for Synergy Enterprise, and then followed by doing a mail merge in Microsoft Word. Before I do that, anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, let me flip over to Outlook. Now, my Outlook, I don't have set up here on the demo system to look like those screenshots I showed you, but typically I like to see my inbox. Maybe I have my preview down here across the bottom. So this looks kind of like a standard Outlook, but you can see up here, this is my Synergy Enterprise toolbar or add-in bar. And for those of you who use Synergy currently, or Synergy Classic, this is going to look a little bit different. For those of you not using Synergy, if you were worried about how you're going to get people to use one more application, maybe this is a way to help them do that, where right here inside my Outlook, I can say, oh, I want to go to my workflow. And now, I haven't gone anywhere outside of Outlook, but I can go here and look at, remember that printer task that I filled out before? I can go here and I can see that somebody has filled out a help desk request, and my name's inside that green box, and so I'm supposed to do something with that. So I go to that office, I fix it, I say it's fixed, and I close it out. And now I'm done with that, and it goes off of my list. So rather, unintimidating for folks to work with it in that sense. Another thing I can do, I can go look at my calendar from Synergy. I can look at my people, all those navigation points that I showed you before. I can create new record. It's right here from Outlook. I can even go to my Synergy homepage, pardon me, from within Outlook if I want to. But the main thing that people tend to do with inside Outlook related to Synergy is upload emails, because I get an email from a customer, I send an email to a customer, and I want a record of that, or my boss has dictated that I should put a record of that into the Synergy system against that customer's record so that everybody knows what was communicated with that customer. So how does that work here inside the Synergy Enterprise? So I'm going to send an email to myself, and I'm going to say this is meeting notes, or I'll say it would be webinar notes, if I can spell. Here's notes from the webinar. I'll attach a file. Let's say this one, and I send it off. Now, there was nothing there related to Synergy, because I have my Synergy add-in set to not prompt me to do anything. A lot of the folks that on the line I now have theirs set such that when they send an email, it prompts them to say, hey, do you want to upload this into Synergy? Otherwise, nobody would ever do it unless they had a really strong policy enforcement there. Here in my demo system, though, I don't have it set that way. And so I need to go to my sent items. Here is my webinar notes email. I can just right mouse on that. And notice down here at the bottom, I can say save or save as. I'll just say save. And right now, all I need to do is say what kind of note this is. So actually, let's say this was a customer complaint. I don't know, just kind of to go back to that quality thing we were doing earlier. And here, I can tell it, based on the fact that it was a customer complaint, I want to map it to known contacts. I want to create a follow-up request. So right here, not only can I upload my document to the Synergy document management system, but I can auto-create an a workflow task to follow up on that. I won't do that in this case, but just so you know you can do it. Here I can link it to other things. I can set the security level of this document. And then here I can set rights. And this, I want to pause here because those of you using Synergy Classic, this was kind of a hole in the security system where when I stored a document in Synergy, I had to decide based on a security level who could see that. And sometimes that was a little bit of a blunt instrument. With Synergy Enterprise, I can now assign a role and say only people with a certain role can view this document. And those roles can be assigned by group or by individual so that we have a lot more finite control over who can see what kind of documents in Synergy. So for me, this is one of the big wins inside Synergy Enterprise from a structure and from a use type of thing. And Kim, if you're on the line from Alpha Point, that's something I see being of use to you guys as you move forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of us, and we have many different levels. So, yeah, if we could narrow that role down,
yeah,
that'd be great.
Okay, so I fill that out. I didn't change anything there, but I'm going to click Save. And with any luck, that'll put that into Synergy for me. Oh, I didn't link it to an account. I did that on purpose because who am I going to link this to? I'll do it to that one. And then I'll save it. I did that on purpose to show that you can enforce business logic when they save documents or whatever from Outlook up into Synergy. So for example, I uploaded that one as a customer complaint. Well, if it's a customer complaint, we probably want to associate that with the customer that it came from. So it did not allow me to upload that customer complaint until I identified who that customer was, or at least a customer, and made that association. So it really works with you to try to keep you from, for lack of a better term, junking up your database by people uploading things and not really being careful about what they're doing. Now, one other thing I want to point out here is notice that one that I just uploaded now has a check mark here in the saved column. This is a column that's added to your Outlook inbox, or in this case, sent items by Synergy, and it indicates that I've saved that into Synergy. And if I right mouse on it again, notice I can no longer save that into Synergy because it's already there, but I have this view capability where I can click that, and it actually can go and pull that thing up and show it to me inside of Synergy now so I can see what that is. And at that point, I can also go in and change the security and the view rights from there, or I could click on this and open up the actual document itself inside Word or PDF or whatever it was. One other note on Synergy Enterprise versus Synergy Classic. Notice this close button. For those of you that are using Synergy Classic, didn't have that before. Now I can have that close button. And I have logic in here that says, I'm trying to close this window. Do you want it to allow to do that? I say yes, and it'll close it. Sometimes before, folks would either back out of a screen or close a screen and lose whatever they've been typing because they got a phone call or whatever. In this case, it's trying to save me from myself a little bit there, so that's a nice add. Okay, that's a quick overview of the Outlook add-in. Let's pop over to Word, which I think I just closed, actually, so let me go open that up. And we teased this in one of the invitations we sent out the other day, so I wanted to follow through with that and talk about using Word to do a mail merge. And this is a specific example, but again, it's just another general comment on leveraging that data. Again, that's either coming from Macola or that you've augmented from Macola in Synergy by adding additional contacts or leads, prospects, whatever. so it's present in the Synergy system, but now I want to use a known, easy-to-use tool like Word in order to either send a mass email, so we've got a price increase or a new product announcement or what have you. I'm going to do that right here inside of Word. So I go to the Synergy add-in inside of Word. I just say this is going to be a CRM. I could also do what's called an HRM merge for human resources. And this, for those of you that have done Word merges before, is kind of along the same lines where I just go through here and I can build my little document real quickly. Won't make it too fancy. And we get state. Maybe come down here to your full name. Whatever that is, and then I can even have something like that maybe. It's nothing too fancy, but just a quick merge. And now I want to pull the data from Synergy to create the merge. So I go to select target groups, CRM, and I can either have a preset template that I've created over in Synergy. So if it's something that I'm doing over and over again, and this is all my customers in Pennsylvania or whatever it is, or I can do a search right here. And in this case, I'll keep it simple. I'll just say I want to see all my active customers in my demo database, but I could, search on state or different things right here. And I click merge, and you can see I pulled back 8 records. I say OK, and now, again, we're right here in Word. I can flip through my merge documents and see how they look. And then when I'm ready to do something with that, perhaps I want to send it via email, and I can go in there and choose if I want to use which email address I want to use, either for the contact or for the company, or I could send that to the printer, or let's say I just want to pull this up and do something individual with it. It creates individual documents for me that I can then do whatever I want with. And then when I either print or email those, it does save these documents back into Synergy, so I have a record of what I send to whom. Now, again, those of you using Synergy Classic, you've seen that before. You can do it inside Synergy as well, but we feel that the improvements here inside the Synergy Enterprise interface are worth noting.
Yeah, that's a lot easier, Andy.
Yeah, I thought so. Again, anything that we can do to keep people inside Outlook or inside Word for certain types of functions, or at least feeling like they're inside those and when they're actually using Synergy data, is less intimidating for folks we've found. So I like that one as well.
That's nice.
Okay. That wraps up what I wanted to show you. Again, that's a little bit of information at a high level. There's a lot of things we didn't get into as far as projects and some of the other things, but just to give you sort of a flavor for, again, taking that data, whether it's in Macola or if you're using some other ERP system perhaps, and then using the dashboards, the workflow, the document management. We didn't even really get to a customer screen today. Oh, and the opportunity management. Either a customer screen or a vendor screen if you're a more vendor-centric department or organization. To help your folks perhaps not have to be in Macola as much, or have easier access, not have to ask the accounting department for as much data, or whatever it is, to be able to accomplish those things. So with that, let me open it up to further questions. Does anybody have anything else I can show you or address? We have technically about 8 minutes left. Or Zach, has anything been chatted in yet?
Nothing from the chat lines. Guys, if you're shy or unable to speak for whatever reason, there is a chat box and a Q&A box that you can access from your WebEx toolbar. So feel free to chat any questions in also, and I'll make sure Andy gets them.
If anyone doesn't have questions, or if one of you doesn't have a question right now, but would like to talk later, I'd be happy to have a side conversation to get into whatever detail that you'd like, or I'm famous for, as I'm driving home in the evening, a question pops into my head that I should have asked earlier, so if that happens, I certainly understand. Anyone else?
Andy, I have a question for you. This is Chris. How do you address when users look at that and they say, it seems a little bit clunky. There's a lot of steps that you have to go through, and
Sure.
particularly salespeople. If no offense to any salespeople on the phone, but they're the ones who usually have ADD, and it's as quick and easy as possible. And if there's a lot of steps you have to go through, we find that lowers our user acceptance and just usage rates.
I want to say I've gone through a sales or CRM related implementation with Synergy, I don't know, between 10 and 20 times with different organizations. We've got a Fortune 500 company that struggles more than you could ever believe with that, down to some very small organizations where, depending on the culture of the organization, a lot of times, and again, not to pick on salespeople, but sometimes it feels to me like the inmates are running the asylum, where it's just really hard to leverage them to get to do things for the betterment of the organization versus the ease of their experience. And especially, and I'm on the road, so I understand how that feels, where, anything that the home office wants me to do sort of puts more paperwork into my day, so to speak. So I guess to address your question, that's kind of what the intent of this, and this is not a great example of something we would give them, but these kinds of dashboards where we've got some folks over near Indianapolis that kind of have that scenario where their salespeople are veterans, if you will, very used to using a pad of paper and a napkin or whatever it is to write their sales notes on, and we're not real excited about having to flip open the laptop in the car and connect to the internet and things like that. So things like this, either inside Outlook or on their own, but a much simplified version of this, where let's say at least at the outset, you only say, hey, I want you to do this one thing, put in your expenses from your trip and get reimbursed this way, or log some simple sales notes or things like that. And again, each situation is different, but we find if you can kind of get them over the hurdle and then at the same time find a way in the system to show them some value, whether you find a way to get them some information that helps them in a sales call, or automates a process for them that was a little difficult before. That's not always possible because a lot of times they've been sort of babied from inside the organization where they would just call in and have somebody else do it for them. So sometimes you have to work pretty hard to make that happen. But if it's going to be successful, we have to find a way to strike that balance between asking them to do some more work, making that work as simple as possible, so not over-engineering the thing, and then sometimes having to step on them from above a little bit and say, hey, this is the way we're going to do stuff because we need to find out what's going on out there.